There is a certain kind of person who, when they walk into a room, nobody really notices. Not because they're invisible, but because they don't announce themselves. They don't dress for the room. They don't perform easily. They carry something quiet and a little strange in their chest, and they've learned, very early on, that the world is not automatically going to make space for them. Most people would look at that person and feel a little sorry for them, or dismiss them entirely. And that person knows it. They've always known it. But here's what's strange, and this is something that rarely gets talked about. That person, the one nobody noticed, is often carrying something that the room could never produce on its own. They just had to survive long enough to figure out how to show it. There's a word that gets thrown around a lot when we talk about people who came from nothing and made it somewhere real. The word is resilience. And the moment you hear it, something in you probably goes a little flat. Because resilience has become one of those words that people use when they don't fully understand what they're describing. It sounds like toughness, like steel, like a person who simply decided not to break. But that's not what it actually is. And the people who've lived it know the difference. Real resilience isn't the absence of collapse. It's what happens inside a person who has been told, again and again, in ways both direct and quiet, that they do not quite fit. And who, instead of forcing themselves into a mold, starts building something out of the misfit pieces instead. That's a much stranger and more interesting story. And it's the story we're going to sit with today. His name is Ed Sheeran. And before he was a name that filled stadiums, before he was the person who figured out how to perform entirely alone on a stage built for 40,000 people, he was a red-haired boy in Halifax who cried every single day of primary school. That's not a metaphor. That's what he has said directly, looking back at his own childhood. He cried every day. He was born missing an eardrum. Laser surgery to remove a port wine birthmark from his face was performed without local anesthetic. The pain was so acute it shocked his nervous system and gave him a stutter that no conventional therapy could touch. A second surgery left him with a lazy eye. He was given large, unflattering NHS glasses. He had red hair. He was, by every visible measure that children use to decide who belongs and who doesn't, a target. And the thing about being that kind of child, the bullied one, the physically conspicuous one, the one who stumbles over words in front of people, is that it does something very specific to your nervous system. It teaches you that the world is watching you, and that the watching is not kind. Psychologists call this hypervigilance. It's a state where your threat detection system runs hot, where you become acutely attuned to other people's reactions, where you learn to read a room because reading the room was once the only way to know if you were safe. It feels like anxiety. It looks like awkwardness. But inside, it is something else entirely. A kind of finely tuned social radar that most comfortable people never develop, because they never needed it. What happened next is the part of the story that most people don't fully think through. His parents banned television and video games from the house, so he had no screens to retreat into, no passive way to disappear. What he had was music and art. And when his father took him to see a small Irish singer-songwriter named Damien Rice perform, and an 11-year-old boy somehow ended up in a backstage conversation that made him believe, actually believe, that one person with a guitar could hold an audience on their own. Something locked into place.
Wow, he's really good.
He is. Just listen.
I love this song.
Feel the magic grow.
But the stutter remained. And here is where the story turns strange in the most psychologically interesting way. His uncle gave his father a copy of Eminem's The Marshall Mathers LP. And something about that album, the speed of it, the density of the syllables, the sheer technical fury of the rapping, became the thing that unlocked him. Not speech therapy, not breathing exercises, rap music. He memorized the entire album, forwards and backwards, drilling it until the pathways in his brain rewired themselves and the stutter receded. This is not mystical. There's real neuroscience behind it. Rhythmic speech, rap, song, cadenced verse, engages different neural circuits than regular conversation. It recruits the motor system differently, bypasses some of the feedback loops that cause stuttering, and allows fluency to emerge through pattern rather than intention. What felt like obsessive play was actually intensive neural rehabilitation. But here's what nobody talks about. The cure didn't just fix his stutter. It installed something. The rapid, rhythmic phrasing he drilled into himself as a child became the foundation of his entire artistic voice. That signature style of his, where words stack on top of each other, where he fits 17 syllables into a space where most singers would fit 8. It wasn't a trick he learned later. It was built into him during the years he was just trying to be able to speak. The wound became the instrument. He left school at 16. His father's advice was stark. If you want to make it in music, you cannot have a safety net. The backup plan becomes the plan. So he moved to London with a backpack and a guitar and no contacts. And for the next 2.5 years, he was effectively homeless. Not between apartments homeless, actually homeless. He slept on the Circle line of the London Underground, waiting on the street until 5 in the morning, then riding the looping trains until noon, because it was warm and nobody stopped you. On the coldest nights, he found a heating duct outside Buckingham Palace and slept there instead. He developed 23 unwashed dreadlocks. He played to empty rooms, to sound engineers, to no one. And he treated every empty room like a rehearsal for a full one. 312 shows in a single year. Not because he was booking well, because he was booking anything. Now, when people tell this story, they usually tell it as a triumph of the underdog story. The scrappy kid who hustled his way to the top. And that's not wrong, but it misses something important. What was actually happening inside him during those years? Sleeping on trains, playing to empty rooms, eating food he'd bought by selling CDs out of a rucksack, was a process of desensitization that most people never go through. Every night he walked onto a stage where nobody cared, he had to find a way to care anyway. He had to learn how to generate his own energy in the absence of a crowd's energy. He had to figure out how to be enough, entirely on his own, in a room that didn't want him. That is an extraordinarily difficult skill. Most performers never develop it because they never have to. They get enough early validation to sustain them. He didn't.
It's all worth it.
So he built an internal engine instead of relying on an external one. And then the gatekeepers came.
Thank you.
He started to attract label interest, and they told him what they needed him to be. Dye the red hair black. Drop the loop pedal. Stop rapping. Be something cleaner, something more manageable, something the existing market already understood. He said no. Not once, repeatedly, until they dropped him. This is the moment that most people, looking at it from the outside, would call stubbornness or naivety, because you have to understand what was being offered. Actual industry support, distribution, marketing, the infrastructure that turns a good musician into a commercially viable one. And he walked away from it because they wanted him to sand down exactly the things that made him different. There's a concept in cognitive psychology called the von Restorff effect. It describes a simple and reliable human tendency. We remember what stands out. In a list of ordinary things, the unusual one lodges in memory. Not because it's better, but because it's different in a way the brain can't ignore. What the industry saw as liabilities, the loop pedal, the rap verses, the ginger hair, the weird cross-genre fusion, were actually the things that made him impossible to forget. He had, without naming it, understood something that the executives hadn't. The goal was not to fit. The goal was to be unforgettable. And fitting, almost by definition, works against that. He uploaded a video to sb.tv, a channel built for grime and hip-hop. The audience showed up expecting folk. What they got was a messy-haired teenager building beats in real time with a loop station and rapping with an energy that had no business coming from someone who looked like him. It went viral, not because it was polished, but because it was jarring in the best possible way. Then came Los Angeles, a one-way ticket, no contacts, no money. He was spotted at an open mic by Jamie Foxx's manager.
Always inspires me.
Foxx, recognizing something in him, offered a couch and access to a private studio. And then, in the way that people who are genuinely curious about talent sometimes do, Foxx put him on a stage in front of 800 R&B musicians and fans, a room that had no particular reason to welcome a young white British folk pop singer with a ukulele. He played for 12 minutes. He got a standing ovation. This is worth pausing on, because it's easy to read it as a charming anecdote. But what it actually demonstrates is something that those years of empty rooms had quietly built inside him. He didn't need the audience to be his audience before he walked on. He could make them his audience from within the first few minutes. That capacity, to hold a room that doesn't know you yet, to earn rather than assume attention, is not natural charisma. It's not a gift. It's a skill, and it's built through specific kinds of repetition that most people would find unbearable. He had done that repetition for years in basements and back rooms and empty venues, and when the moment came that actually mattered, the capacity was just there, waiting.
Keep dreaming big, never give up.
Here is the counterintuitive thing about all of this, and it's the thing that's hardest to sit with. The adversity was not incidental to the outcome, it was constitutive of it. Not in the motivational sense, not the idea that suffering builds character in some clean, linear way. It's more specific than that. The particular shape of his difficulties produced the particular shape of his abilities. The stutter produced the rhythmic vocal style. The empty rooms produced the internal engine. The rejection produced the stubbornness. The outsider status produced the von Restorff effect. Remove any one of those difficult things, and a different artist emerges. Not necessarily a lesser one, we can't know that, but a different one. The thing that hurt him was, in a very direct sense, the thing that built him. This is not a comfortable idea, because it doesn't fit neatly into either the suffering is useful narrative or the suffering should be avoided narrative. It's just a true observation about how certain kinds of people work. The difficulty doesn't just test them, it shapes them at the level of neural pathways and behavioral strategies and aesthetic sensibility. And that shaping is not a compensation for what they lacked. It's something they genuinely have.
Thank you.
Today, Ed Sheeran has sold over 200 million records. He fills stadiums of 80,000 people alone with a loop station. He recently turned down an offer to perform the first concert in space, not because the money wasn't right, but because he wasn't willing to risk leaving his children without a father just to break a record. The boy who slept on trains has decided what actually matters to him, and it's not the record. One of the kids who bullied him in primary school now works as his plumber. That detail lands differently depending on who you are. For some people, it reads as a satisfying irony. For others, it reads as a reminder of how arbitrary the early social hierarchies were, how little they predicted. The boy who was told he was wrong, wrong hair, wrong eyes, wrong voice, wrong sound, turned out to be exactly right. Not right in spite of those things, right through them. If something in this sat with you, if you recognize something in that pattern, the person who doesn't fit the room, who was told to smooth down their edges, who found their way not by conforming, but by doubling down on exactly what made them strange, then there's more worth sitting with. Because what Ed Sheeran's story is really about isn't music. It's about what happens when a person refuses to let the world's discomfort with them become their own discomfort with themselves. And that is a much more universal story than most people realize.
Everything I built, it was for this.
We're home.